Good day. This is ENG 328, Study Session 9. Okot P. Bitek, Alienation and Cultural Nationalism. Introduction. In this study session, you will learn about colonialism, alienation and cultural nationalism as the main themes around which Okot P. Bitek works revolve. Learning outcomes. After the study session, you should be able to 1. Establish Song of Lawino and Song of Hokol as allegorical. 2. Identify the main issue in Song of a Prisoner. Biography of Okot P. Bitek. Okot P. Bitek was born in 1931 in Guhi, Akoli land in northern Uganda. His writings are influenced by oral literature, his mother's song, and the stories his father performed around the evening fire. He has been lauded for his successful use of oral forms in his English language poems. Okot P. Bitek 1931 to 82. The singer of satiric songs was throughout his sojourn on earth, and in his consciousness a rustic bard anxious to weave the ironies and contradictions of contemporary post-colonial Africa into symphonies that will be cares and at the same time prick the earlobes of his audience. P. Bitek's brief stay at the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Nigeria, must have irked most of his intellectual colleagues who saw in him a renegade. Lectures for P. Bitek were village squares for entertaining his stunned but thrilled students. He will perform some Akoli songs in his high-pitched voice, and the students will respond with ovation. After the performance, P. Bitek will scuttle to Oduduwa Hall with a few brave students at his heels for some pints of beer. P. Bitek argued that his salary was loot, which the government paid for his antics as a professor. Few, however, knew that these bouts of beer at Oduduwa were masks won by an anguished soul vegetating in exile, as his fatherland Uganda was under the maiming grasp of Idi Amin. Among his works are Song of Lawino 1966, Song of Hokol 1970, Song of a Prisoner 1971, and Song of Malaya 1971, The Horn of My Love 1974. Analysis of Okot P. Bitek poetry. Song of Lawino and Song of Hokol, voices in the wilderness of alienation. Song of Lawino is frequently seen as a publication that brought P. Bitek to literary prominence because it openly stood for Africanists at a time when the forces of progress, development, and new religions scared most people away from asserting their African identities. Lawino, the main character in the poem, not only makes social and cultural comments, but also speaks for the voiceless majority who helplessly stand between modern and traditional cultures. Lawino, the protagonist in Song of Lawino, can be seen as the embodiment of most of the aspirations and contradictions of the Uganda wretch of the earth, the peasantry and the peasant laborers who have all been violated by colonialism and shaking their economy, worldview, and cherished spiritual institutions. Thus, the world in which they are now thrown into is one in which things are no longer at ease, since the colonizer put a knife on all the things that hold them together. Consequently, they are stunned, confused, dispirited, and utterly alienated in various shades from the institutions erected by colonialism. Lawino can be seen as personifying this spirit of despair waiting in the night of the conquerors and their African heirs. It is crucial that we stress the class dimension of Lawino if her cries are to be interpreted meaningfully within the context of Africans' neo-colonial existence. Though Lawino is individualized as a disgruntled wife engaged in a domestic brawl with her husband, Okol, who has literally abandoned the countrified Lawino for a sighted and sophisticated mistress, Tina. Yet, Lawino's trenchant criticism of Okol is a collation of two antagonistic classes and their values. Lawino's reaction of Clementina, her husband's westernized lover, creates the impression that Lawino is a newly married woman, for a woman seasoned in marriage will not be bothered by the likes of Clementina. To P. Bitek, Lawino is a spokeswoman for her people. For example, people who never went to university. Lawino's estrangement from her husband is the basis of Okol's public ridicule, since he considered her outdated, like the things left behind, or in the desert homestead, or like a wild goat, campaigning for power, thus neglecting his meals, as if I do not cook. It is this estrangement of wife from husband that facilitates the verbal tussle between Lawino and Cool. Lawino can be regarded as the encapsulation of Akwoli peasant culture. In the words of Cabral, culture is a result with more or less awakened consciousness of economic and political activities, the more or less dynamic expressions of the types of relations prevailing within that society, on the one hand between man, considered individually or collectively, and nature, and on the other hand among individuals, socials, strata, or classes. 1980, Difto 141. Lawino therefore personifies the resilience of Akwoli peasant culture in the wake of the corrosive effect of colonial and neo-colonial domination. Thus, she celebrates with glee Akwoli moves. She had been chief of girls. As a youth, is a good dancer at traditional festivals, is well grounded in the Akwoli names for surrounding phenomena, and had even the enslaving region of the colonizer. I refused to join the Protestant catechism class because I did not want to become a home girl. Lawino can be phrased in her defense of Akwoli culture, but she never degenerates to being a cultural chauvinist. She thus prefers her peasant songs to the colonizers, is contented with our traditional meals, utensils, ways of life, beliefs, superstitions, philosophy, and even accept polygamy. I have need of it. All she asks for in the new society is an affirmation of the authenticity and validity of our peasant culture. I do not understand the ways of foreigners, but I do not despise their customs. Why should you, Okol, despise yours? Lawino believe in a peasant culture can be said to affirm Ngugi's observation that despite the corrosive and alienating nature of colonialism, only a figment of the conquered people imbibed the conqueror's credos and mannerism, thus leaving mass of the people still close to the soil without completely losing contact with their traditions. Hence, Lawino extols the magnitude of this mass culture. Listen, Okol, my old friend. The ways of your ancestors are good. Their customs are solid and not hollow. They are not thin, not easily breakable. They cannot be blown away by the winds. Because their roots reach deep into the soil, but the adulterated Okol, representative of the educated native, is utterly alienated from his cultural heritage and declares that he could uproot and demolish the entire homestead. To hell with your pumpkins and your old homestead. To hell with the husks of old traditions and meaningless customs. We will mash the taboos one by one, explode the basis of every tradition. We will uproot every sacred tree and demolish every ancestral shrine. Okol's cultural alienation cuts him off from his people's dances, rites, ancestral worship, communal ethos, gerontocratic values, medicinal herbs, and philosophical interpretations of surrounding phenomena. Thus, disconnected from this cultural umbilical cord that could nourish him with spirit-born energy, he looks with disdain at his people's technological level, their history. The political parties are pierced by the searching intelligence of Lawimo. They are exposed for what they are, lies and deceit. The woman yodel and make ululation, not because they understand, but because they are tired of the insult and lies of the speakers. As a result, there is a wide gap between the politicians and the masses. And while those inside eat thick honey and ghee and butter, those in the countryside die of the smell. They are hit the bones that were thrown away for the dogs. Okol personifies the class of educated Africans, and even his creator, P. Bitek, affirms this is a voice of stupidity of people who went to the university. Thus imbued with his Eurocentric and dialectical outlook, Okol inveighs against his people's cultural heritage and history and vows to uproot Lawimo's romanticized and symbolic pumpkin and hopes to replace it with a tree of capitalist individualism. I see an homeland in the valley below, huts, granaries, all in ruins. I see a large pumpkin, rooting 1,000 beetles in it. We will plow up all the valley, make compost of the pumpkins and the other native vegetables. The fence dividing family holdings will be torn down. I will uproot the trees demarcating the land of clan from clan. 124. African history is negatively perceived by our educated native. Africa becomes in his consciousness the sleeping idle giant, deceased with chronic illness. Africans' forms of social consciousness are superstitions. His technological inventions become mere toys. Look at his toy weapons. This utensil is hot. Toy garden, toy chickens, toy cattle, toy children. Songs of Lawino is entertaining and teaches a sense of self-worth that resists the effect of Western cultural domination. Song of Hokol is a typical male song because it is a response to the accusations in Song of Lawino. It is Okot's way of agreeing with Lawino and a resistance to westernization, while also accepting the social and cultural changes taking place in Africa. In Song of Hokol, Lawino meets a match. She is silenced because her song is viewed as the confused noise made by the rain after the butcher's knife as sung past the windpipe. 1996, Ditto 10. Lawino actually upset those who thought living African traditional for a Western way of life was fashionable and progressive. They thought they had come a long way and were upset when Lawino kept telling them that they were misguided. On the other hand, there were those who cheered and encouraged Lawino because she spoke for those who were intimidated into silence. Cultural nationalism. Song of a Prisoner. Song of a Prisoner was written while Okot was in exile. It may have been influenced by the feeling of abandonment, and it depicts what he saw as Africans struggle with the evils of uhuru, confusion, unpleasant experiences, doubts, and regret. Song of a Prisoner joined a chorus of voices that said national leaders had been uhuru for personal gain, while government leaders benefited from uhuru. The poor were beaten, jailed, and even killed without cause. The poem is generally understood to be Okot's examination of the unfulfilled expectations of uhuru, but it may also reflect his community's struggle to understand the meaning of independence. Notable Akoli political leaders of the 1950s failed to communicate the essence of independence to their people. The anger of those who have lost their freedom is expressed very effectively in the last lines of Songs of a Prisoner. I want to drink human blood to cool my heart. I want to eat human liver to quench my boiling water thirst. I want to smear human fat on my belly and my forehead. Song of Malaya could more readily be seen as a companion to White Teeth. If Okika's story was viewed as the beginning of urban migration, while Okika went to town to save up money to marry the girl he loved, most Akoli young men in the 1960s went to town in search of education and white-collar jobs. Unlike Okela, who returned to his rural home after he felt he had achieved his goal, most of those young men become acclimated to urban life and came to view the city as their home. Song of Malaya is primarily the story of urban dwellers. Importantly, there is something common to Okot's songs, and that is the use of traditional modes of expression and African imagery. In Ngara's words, the imagery is similar to that of Okara, but the binary opposition between nature imagery and metaphors derived from modern technology is not as strong in the Ugandan poet as it is the Nigerian 1900 Ditto 62. Even while depicting modern life, P. Bitek makes use of images taken from a traditional setup. Two bulls wrestle with their horns. The horn of the ruling bull breaks and it tumbles down the smooth breast of the hill. and plunges into the river. Study session summary. In this study session, we learnt that in Song of Lawino and Song of Hokol, Okos spoke out on the cultural changes taking place in Akoli land and beyond Song of Malaya, in primarily the story of urban dwellers and the myriads of challenges encountered by young people. We can also say that Okot P. Bitek's achievement in Song of Lawino is unparalleled in African poetry to date. Using traditional modes of expression and tropes, he created a memorable poem in the medium of English. We have come to the end of study session 9. Thanks for listening.